What you are about to watch is for entertainment purposes only and does not constitute any type of advice. Always question the validity of what you see and what you hear. Viewer discretion is advised.
Before we start today's video, I'd like to clarify and further emphasize on the previous topic about the character archetypes of the hero and the victim. After publishing the last video, I had a conversation with a member of the team, and his stand was that there's a purpose for both the hero and the victim, which is very true, and I agree on his stance. I think that he was left with the impression that I thought there was no purpose for these archetypes. That tells me that I did not cover that aspect of the topic, so I will do that on this video, and then we'll move on to the topic for today. So the hero archetype serves the purpose of standing up and fighting, even in the face of fear. It does serve a purpose because it makes the stand that is needed in order to fulfill the trajectory of the destiny. Even in the Bible, there are plenty of hero archetypes that serve a godly purpose. For example, Abraham, Israel, Moses, Job, Eliyahu, David, and many others. Where the downfall of the hero can happen is when either a tyrant poses as a hero or when the hero believes his own delusions and leads to his fall. A good example would be Samson and Delilah's story. Now for the victim, the archetype actually serves a powerful purpose so that one is able to identify danger, decide whether to fight or flight, and identify injustices. Without the victim archetype, we would not be able to stand against injustices because we will be oblivious to them. It is so powerful that without the victim, there is no hero. If there's no essence of victimhood, there cannot be a hero to change the trajectory away from victimization. People wouldn't be able to plead to God to help, and people wouldn't be able to unite against injustices. They wouldn't even be able to identify injustices, so this shows us that the victim archetype actually serves a powerful purpose. The whole point of the prior video was to show when those archetypes are used to make excuses for terrible behavior, manipulate others, keep people divided, or use other archetypes for personal gain. The reality is that when the truth shows up, grifters are exposed and unmasked. Eliyahu's story is a perfect example of God exposing these enemies. The moment that Eliyahu passes his test and the pagans fail, Eliyahu had to crush him to the point of no return. Just like one of the laws of power states that if you have enemies, they must not be able to come back from your response. Otherwise, they'll come back with anger and much higher desire to take you out of the game. I think it was good to get out of the way. Now for today's topic, we're going to be talking about the secret name of God. We have talked about this topic before, but I think it is a good idea to take an emphasis with a twist from Vadim Zeland, Stephen Walensky, and Gary Douglas on today's topic. If you have followed this channel, you'll probably hear me saying that there are two primary names of God. One that has a pronunciation, Yahoo, which is a very short version of the Ayeh, which means I am that, which reveals a resemblance of God via the Spirit, which means breath. In that aspect, all living organisms belong to the essence of God. The name I am that I am reflects our acknowledgement that we're one with God and not separate. The denial of that is what leads to sin, suffering, and an empty quest of the self. This is why those who are convinced that they are lost somehow endlessly enter the quest of finding themselves, which leads them to further delusions. The second name is the unsounded tetragrammaton, which is the silent I am with no sound, ability to conceptualize or explain in human words. This is the intellectual consciousness aspect of God that only we as humans possess. This is what brings us closer to God as creators and give us the freedom of choice whether to serve God or not. Angels and animals have no free will. This is why Yeshayahu 43:20 explains that even the morning birds sing for God. Animals act according to their nature that God has granted them. Humanity are the only ones who have the choice, and hence why we have such a huge sense of chaos and huge desire for order. Walensky learned through Serini Sagdato Maharaj that the true essence of the self is the silent I am, which was right in accordance with the silent name of God. We truly believe that God still continues to inspire humanity, and therefore there is much more to God's wisdom than just scriptures. That is not to diminish the Bible, but rather the contrary, to support it and say that to this day, God still speaks to humanity. This is why we respect and acknowledge Islam, Sufism, and non-duality philosophies, because we know that the will of God is eternal and therefore will speak to us. I know it can make us vulnerable to grifters pretending to be prophets of God, but we stand by God's sovereignty, and we know that He will expose those grifters. We have the wisdom of truth, and when you abide by it, You will always expose the liars, such as those claiming that God required 10% of your earnings. If Jesus was around, he would whip them and tell them, "Get the fuck out of my father's house, you fucking thieves." We know that the truth doesn't hurt, but it sure makes the grifters uncomfortable. Gary Douglas takes things to a whole new level because he recognizes that most of our problems are made up. For example, not being able to start your car is a physical problem. If your car doesn't start when you turn the ignition, it could be a battery, starter, or some other mechanical issue. There is no question. There is an issue with your car and it has to get fixed. It will very likely not get fixed on its own unless the starter that is at the verge of failure but has not completely failed all the way. If you have a cold and your body feels hot and you struggle to get out of bed, there is no question. The problem has a very physical manifestation that is obvious. And for anyone who has ever experienced a cold or knows someone who has, if you have a headache, you know it beyond question. Although there are levels and locations on your head that vary depending on the type of headache, you know that you have a headache and there's no need to ponder on anything. However, with imaginary issues such as being too shy, not feeling worthy, being afraid of rejections, not being good at learning, being desperate for love, and all the excuses that were made believe to be true, or that somehow we convince ourselves to be true, we push ourselves to believe that we can't escape what we think to know. The issue is imaginary because there's no tangible physicality to it. The body can have a response because as we convince ourselves of the relentless lie that we have been training for, our bodies tense up. The beauty of the Beyond Distraction work by Gary Douglas is that he has taken it much farther. He helps us recognize that we are the sons and daughters of God who have the power to destroy and create all the lies, all the deception, and distorted perceptions. They coincide with Stephen Walensky and Maharaj in that everything that we have been told about ourselves has come externally, even the language we speak, and therefore we have the ability to question the validity of anything we think of ourselves and return to sender. They claim that the lies feel heavy and truth feels light. This coincides with Eric Gentry from Forward Facing Trauma Therapy, who says that the body tenses up during stressful situations. The truth on itself does not bring any struggle, so therefore there is no tension. Lies bring tension, and therefore we feel a heavy sensation when we are dealing with those lies. The truth only leads to tension and feels heavy when there are lies trying to deny it and oppose to it. For example, when someone is so deep in their delusion and the truth shows up, the tension is even worse than when the lie is being dealt by itself. Gary mentions that when you are not certain whether your dilemma feels light or heavy, you can trace where you bought the lie. This is important because when your body is not telling you about it being heavy, it is probably hiding it because lies can take over your body. If you are able to acknowledge when you first encountered a lie, you can return it to sender. Gary recommends not trying hard to remember the first time you heard the lie, but rather to just let it flow and allow to let the first thought that tells you the origin of the flow. If you try hard to find the accuracy and validity of the theory, you will end up negotiating with the lie and you would have already lost the game. But New Zealand has its own incredible system called reality transurfing, where the primary premise is to disengage from the game of the pendulums by reducing importance and therefore not obsess over the event or object desired. By reducing importance, the games of engagement are eliminated because if you encounter a pattern of struggle, instead of endless and obsessive engaging with it, you may decide that it's not the right opportunity or time and not to waste your time because you know that the energy input will not match the output. Zealand's theory is extremely elegant and complex, but he puts it together so well. It is the most powerful spiritual book that we have read, and I have studied some powerful ones, such as The Theory of the Four Enemies by Carlos Castañeda and The Five Levels of Attachment by Don Miguel Ruiz. Castañeda explains that in life there are four main obstacles that prevent us from reaching our full human potential. The first one is fear, which is where the majority of the world resides, busting and grinding day in and day out, ready for the day-to-day hustle, fearful of losing the security of the jobs and therefore perpetually giving it a go. People will be studying hard for a long time, while at the same time accumulating a massive amount of debt that they cannot easily discharge through bankruptcy. Anything and everything that is portrayed on the news is taken at a face value, and absolute trust is granted to the schools that are raising the children, and therefore the same level of fear will form part of those children, at least for the great majority, since that's what is modeled to them. The next level is clarity, which is what dispels fear, but can lead to a path of entire life wasted, trusting the grifters, fake gurus, which are the replacements of the false prophets, and even churches that want 10% of your wallet in exchange for salvation. Obsessing over the idea that there is one clarity or one path is what can lead right back to the fear level and to a quest that leads nowhere but to waste your life. These people endlessly spend time looking for themselves and try to work on themselves instead of looking for God and trying to work on their relationship with God. Acknowledging that our purpose as humans is to serve God leads us to many paths of flexibility that we're willing to receive our destiny no matter what it looks like, which can lead us to the next level, which is power. Power is the level where the 1% live. Those who have understood that flexibility understand that there is more than one way to a goal and they're willing to adapt and change. They are the ones who will be granted power. The Bible, the 48 laws of power, and our guidance can help you get to that stage. The Bible is the powerful recorded history of the quest of loyalty and the struggle that betrayal brings. The 48 laws of power will give you a powerful insight of what power is about. Our guidance is an unapologetic version of the truth, but it is up to you whether you believe us or not. We provide this for entertainment only, so we leave the riddle for you to resolve. Ask questions, don't believe everything that you're told, and embark on the quest to increase your literacy levels. For those of you who are able to determine that power is not the entire encompassment of existence, eventually death will become too evident. We know that our bodies will not last forever, that our consciousness will have a shift in the absence of the experience of what we call life, and that we will not be here forever. Once we have a grasp of that knowledge and recognize life for the temporary experience that it is, power may be enjoyable, but it is not the ultimate experience or reason for existence. Old age becomes recognized as the ultimate obstacle for our existence. We get old and we know we don't have long. The solution to overcome this ultimate challenge is to enjoy serving God and continue to serve God with the same pleasure as we did early on during our journey. We know old age will lead us to the end, but we face it without fear because we know we are serving our true purpose until the end. If on the day we become aware of our destiny to serve God, we serve God by helping others overcome financial struggle, on our last day, we must be working on our refined and ultimate solution to the end of the final struggle of our fellow humans. Our servitude to God could look very different from day one to our last days, but it is still our servitude to God, and therefore we are serving our purpose. For example, you could be helping by providing financial advice and training, but later on your last days, it could shift from being helping others with housing as means of overcome financial struggles. You're still serving your purpose and devotion to God. You are not fixed to the details or a singular path. Be of wisdom and knowledge to continue on the flexibility path. Don Miguel Ruiz does an excellent job at teaching us why we deviate from our path to serving God. In his book, The 5 Levels of Attachment, he presents a system of indoctrination that can lead you to waste your life away by engaging with notions that keep you attached to an idea, activity, or even a person. The first level is true self, where you're not attached to anything and rather flexible to the paths that are presented to you. You are not held to anything and therefore find yourself in the path to overcome the deception behind the clarity barrier. The next level is preference, where you're convinced that you prefer one thing over another. This is where the dangerous game begins. You can claim to prefer an opportunity in an MLM over a remote job, a partner who is taller over a short one, or prioritizing career and neglecting having a family. These preferences can already exclude you from many opportunities that you may have had if you've been open to be convinced that you may have a better choice available. The remote job may have been better and more legit than the MLM. A short partner could have been a person who was going to treat you with much more respect, or having a family and career may have been possible, but you may believe that it was not possible. You can already see how early on the trouble starts. Even at the second level, that creates attachment. The third level is identity, which is you identifying with an idea, such as calling yourself an entrepreneur for your MLM scam, being a lover of tall and handsome partners, and being a boss finishing your studies. The identity level creates a further level of attachment because now you have created an archetypal level that is a deeper delusion than someone who just has a preference. The next level is internalization, which are those who defend the idea, activity, or person. For example, at this level, people defend the MLM against those who call it a scam or a grift. Others judge and make fun of short people and say that they would never give a chance to anyone who's a certain height, and others defend the idea to put their education or everything else and have it as a non-negotiable. The next level is fanatism, which is the total devotion to your cult, idea, or people. This is where the fanatics cut off everyone who doesn't agree with the MLM cult scam, subscribe to extremist groups such as feminism, who hate men and demonize their every move, or refuse to get close to a man who does not have a higher level of education, earns more money, and has a much higher status than they do, the more deep a person is into the fanatism, the more devastating the consequences tend to be. That's why we're here, not only to reveal the sacred names of God, but also to teach you that you're not separate from those names and from that image of God. So the rules of the game have been revealed to you. There's much more than that, and that's why we created Freedom 320, because we provide you an opportunity to escape the fanatism and enter into freedom. We also have an amazing spiritual path, which consists of training in spiritual resolution, which can train you on how to remove others from the delusion of fanatism, and our tarot course levels 1 through 3, which not only teach you how to guide others and yourself to tarot, but also reveal a great secret to you that tarot is not a divination system, and therefore it is not forbidden by Leviticus 19:26. Most tarot readers themselves do not know this secret, but a few who have a strong skin in the game don't want you to know this truth. We also have a behavioral-based training that is more grounded on science, functional achievement facilitation, which helps you identify the opportunities of engagement in the environment that can sabotage your goals and how to change the environment in your favor. This training actually places you at the facilitator level, so you'll learn how to help others. We also have 3 books: Chronicles of Human Emotions, Rechanneling Hate and Violence, and The Green Form of the Supernatural. The first book teaches you how to use your emotions as intuitions to escape the indoctrination on lies. The second book teaches you to turn anger and somatic experience that come from anger into creativity. And the last book is a fiction book that gives you a new view on reality. At the very least, they are very entertaining, and although there is no guarantee, we think that you will be pleased with the potential results that you can have in your life. Honestly, sometimes the best content is the one that does not make any promises, and we're part of that. We also want to share some information about our sponsors, Awaken ABA. They are the pioneers in the field of consciousness, and recently they started accepting students from outside of the state of Oregon for the Oregon licenses in their consciousness field. It was great having you today. May God bless you.